3, 2, 1. Kill everyone.
What would a Doom game be without amazing weapons to shoot and lots of squishy meat bags to use as target practice? When it comes to the game's multiplayer, there are often specific weapons and equipment that are favoured among the more dedicated and high-skilled player base. This video takes us into what some of those weapons are, what their combinations tend to be, and how best to utilise the preferred arsenal that top players in community tournaments bring to the table. The first thing to master if you want to get better at multiplayer is the quick switch system. Your weapon switch button will instantly swap to the other weapon selected in your loadout. After a very short time, you're able to fire it. The trick is to fire your weapon and then immediately switch to your next weapon and fire as fast as the game will allow. Constantly rinse and repeat this and you can create a chain of massive damage output depending on the weapons that you've selected. This opens up the importance of taking two weapons that complement each other, as the ability to pump out consistent damage is irreplaceable for most of the weapons in the game. Now that we've discussed the basics of weapon switching, let's take a look into some of the weapons individually. By far the most popular weapon that you'll see, and for good reason, the static rifle was one of the most versatile weapons in the game. By moving around the map, the weapon will passively charge, increasing the damage output of a single shot projectile. At low charge, it deals 20 damage. At max charge, it hits for 60, even higher if you land a critical headshot. Dangerous at range due to its lack of damage fall off, it means that you can compete with ranged enemies effectively. However, when using quick switch, this is where the static rifle comes to life. Pair the static rifle with either of the two shotguns and you can delete enemies in the blink of an eye. Fire a fully charged static rifle, quickly followed by a shotgun blast from quick switching, and it's a combo that is rarely survived, the exception being if the opponent has a major stack of health and armor. Often seen as the backup weapon to follow up initial damage, but still a superb pick by itself, the combat shotgun boasts a larger effective range to its more old school counterpart in the super shotgun. You also have the benefit of a secondary fire, shooting a grenade that explodes on impact and dealing 50 damage on a direct hit. More effective against enemies slightly further away, and paired with a projectile that has decent splash damage, the combat shotgun doesn't necessarily need to be a weapon just to follow up damage from your primary, however. The grenade shot does such decent damage by itself, you can grenade shot and then quick switch to your primary to follow up the damage the grenade deals, working hand in hand with your other weapon of choice. Things get much more traditional with the super shotgun. It serves one purpose and one purpose only, dealing massive damage to anyone unfortunate enough to be point blank. It has a large cone of fire and is especially effective if the enemy takes up your reticule on the screen. You have some of the absolute highest damage output in the game up close. The super shotgun is the most effective if it's used as the weapon that you quick switch to after the initial damage has been landed. Pairing this weapon with anything that has both decent range and high damage output, it can set up a two-piece combo against anyone sitting at roughly 100 health. Of course, you can always use melee to finish the combo if need be. The rocket launcher fires a projectile of average speed and has a generous amount of splash damage. Rockets deal 60 damage on impact, with your secondary fire allowing you to detonate rockets mid-air. Even though hit scan is definitely the preferred method of choice when it comes to primary weapons, we still see the rocket launcher used in community tournaments. This is because of a very specific loadout that combines the rocket launcher with the super shotgun. Rocket launcher and super shotgun is a devastating close range loadout with the splash damage potential to take on multiple enemies at once. Direct hits will still deal 60 damage, but can hurt more than one target. Often it only takes one rocket and one super shotgun blast to finish an opponent off, but chaining this back to back leads to a superb amount of damage output. You can also fire rockets towards a certain area that you know the enemy is likely to tread, and while the rocket is mid-air you can switch to the super shotgun. By the time the rocket connects, you're already about to fire with the super shotgun, and is one of the fastest combos in the game to take somebody out. Not a particularly popular weapon, but it is a personal favourite of mine. The Hellshot is a semi-automatic rifle that deals 25 damage per shot with 35 for a successful headshot. The secondary fire launches a slower moving projectile that applies a damage over time effect and steadily ticks 6 health multiple times a second. Your primary fire is a means to deal consistent damage anywhere on the map, and with a fast fire rate, 4 successful shots will swiftly deal with anyone that has the default 100 health. The secondary fire is useful for a number of different ways. When an opponent is taking damage from the ticking over time effect, you can actually see the damage numbers through the map. If you tag someone who is now behind a corner, you can still see exactly where they are due to the number values. It also distorts the enemy's vision temporarily, which can cause enemies to panic and misplay in a 1v1. Now the interesting thing about the health shot is that there's a certain trick that you can do which involves both the primary and secondary fire. Usually, you're limited to firing either the primary or secondary fire at a certain speed. However, if you flick primary and secondary fire really fast in succession, you'll actually fire both projectiles at almost exactly the same time and further increase the burst damage that you're about to output. Combining the 25 damage from the primary fire and the tick damage of the secondary, the average opponent is left with about 17 health from 100 HP, meaning that one sequence just did 83 damage. Combine this tick with a quick switch or melee and nobody will survive. The frag grenade is exactly as you'd expect. It has a short fuse and deals massive damage upon detonation. If an opponent is standing directly on top of it, they'll take 100 damage. Use this before you start firing to try and get a head start, or drop it before death to try and take your opponent with you. The Tesla rocket is one of the easier aggressive items to use correctly. It fires straight forward and has decent range. It ticks 8 damage rapidly for the whole duration and will stay after death. Using it is simple. Throw it towards an enemy for free damage, which will complement any burst that your loadout is currently doing. It's also great in a group fight because it slows enemies down and can hit multiple people. If you're looking for raw damage, take the Tesla and you can't go wrong. One of the most aggressive ways to use the teleporter is to equip it on a loadout with both shotguns selected. Firing a shotgun by simply holding primary fire will only fire the weapon so fast. Firing one of your shotguns and then quick switching to fire the next immediately grants a much higher fire rate than the traditional method. Using the personal teleporter alongside this loadout allows you to maneuver around the map the fastest, in turn making your up close and personal combination of weapons the most dangerous. Players in multiplayer love to chase, which is why the Kinetic mine is awesome. It sticks to the ground, and if an enemy treads near, it flies towards their location and deals 130 damage for a direct hit. If an enemy sees the mine, they can shoot it and disarm it safely. When placing the mine, almost use it as a buddy to watch your back. If you feel an enemy is likely to flank, place it on a wall behind you and it will tend to take out anyone that tries to ambush you. When placing the mine on a wall, make sure that you're placing it higher up on the wall so that general splash damage in doorways doesn't affect it and doesn't remove it unnecessarily. Another thing to note is that after death, the mine doesn't disappear until you respawn. If you've been fragged and know that an enemy is about to tread near, deliberately wait and see if the mine detonates. On death, you have the luxury of a third-person camera, which makes looking out for enemies nearby a lot easier. After detonation, you can respawn as usual with an extra kill under your belt. Now, I know I haven't covered every weapon in the game, but I wanted to take a small look into the weapons that are favoured by the players that have been around for a long time. The weapons have a lot more depth than meets the eye, and once you explore these techniques, you'll find that you have a lot more fun and start seeing much better results. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.